So again, our panelists, today we have Ella Glendining. Hello, Ella, thank you. Fioana Whittington-Walsh. We have Karla Verschoor over here, Usha Gunatilake, and we have, gosh, where am I here? Afton, Quast, Sailor. Thank you. I do a lot of moderating, as you can tell. First question. It's always hard, the first one. Yes, in the back. Yeah, just wait for the mic.
I just realized there was a comment about waiting for the mic to be given to you, and I have ADHD, so I forgot. Great intro for that. So my question is for Afton. I cannot say everything I thought and felt while watching the movie. It was so beautiful. Thank you so much for this short documentary that rang home, obviously. But I had a question about this lady you're talking with in the movie. I did not catch her name. She was this like older lady that you were talking to, talking about how taking medication was necessary for her. And I thought it was wonderful to include older women and just like older people when it comes to talking about disability and ADHD, because a lot of people think ADHD is just like some quirk that teenagers have, but when it's not the case, of course. So I was just wondering to get like more information about who this woman was and how you met her, and if there's anything that she shared with you that you couldn't put into the movie.
Yeah, she. I believe you're speaking about Mimi. Was she the one with the kind of distracting Zoom background? Yeah, she's wonderful. She's a set designer. She worked at USC for a very long time, and we got connected because I went to school there, and so I had seen her around, and it's like someone who's has ADHD like can smell it on someone else, and we're like, let's bond and be friends forever, and then we forget about each other. So that's what we kind of did when we first met, and then when I decided to do the documentary, I had reached out to her, and she wasn't diagnosed until she was, I think, like 65. And she went on a stimulant. And I think part of it that triggered it for her, because for her, since she was a set designer, her schedule and the way her lifestyle was, it's like it kind of worked, and she was just like kooky or, whatever. So it wasn't like, she didn't go to a 9-to-5 job. She didn't go to a place where she needed to, be a certain way. She could just be herself. And then I guess what happened is she went through menopause, and that kicked it into a different gear. So, which I've heard before with other women that I've spoken to as this has been screening, that hormones can really change everything. It's just you go through your whole life and maybe don't have symptoms, and then all of a sudden, you go through menopause and yay, there it is. So she had to deal with it all much later in life, which was really interesting. So yeah, thanks for asking. Did I answer your question? Okay.
Thank you. Yes, up middle row, put in the maroon burgundy. Yeah. Hey.
Hey, thank you all for your films. This is so wonderful. I think my question is for all of you, perhaps. Each of the films touched on themes of acceptance. And I think particularly in Is Anybody Out There, there was discussion of groups primarily focused on parents. But I mean, when it comes to activism, there's a lot of like by us, for us. And I guess my question is, have you found or facilitated anything, groups that are talking about disability, visible and invisible, that are by us and for us?
I didn't really find that the Facebook groups that I joined, it wasn't activism. That's not what was happening. It was kind of the opposite. And I hesitate to say that. Well, I don't, but I should, because I feel bad, and that was like my big thing throughout the whole process of making the film was I really didn't want to come across as judgmental towards these groups. But yeah, they were all very, very much focused on surgery and how to fix these children. So yeah, I mean, I don't know about groups. I feel like for me personally, I have a group of amazing disabled friends. And I don't know that we are activists in the traditional sense, like, because it's so hard just existing as a disabled person. And, you know, we're deeply passionate. And as you see in the film, like me and Naomi, for example, it's what we talk about all the time. Like, you know, that's what's interesting to us. But in terms of like protesting in the way that you see that Kevin does, like we don't do it. Me and Naomi, I mean. But yeah, I have a group of amazing disabled friends, and that's like totally what gets me through. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. One thing that I found amazing, well, I mean, just thank you both for this film. It's so rare to have women with disabilities telling any kind of story or even being in the films. And I found that both of you really managed to turn the gaze so that we weren't watching you or listening to your story through that medical gaze. You were really able to turn it around so that we felt part of the community. And I found it really interesting that diagnosis seemed to be really important in both films, and for different reasons, but yet diagnosis also helped you find community in a way. It helped you with your journey of finding some of the folks that you met in the film. And then Afton, you were really talking about diagnosis a lot, and then talking to people about diagnosis. So I found that to be a really interesting way of making community. And I don't know if either one of you want to just comment on that.
Oh yes, I'd love to. Thank you. Yeah, that's a really good comment. Yeah, this is so interesting for me because I think that diagnosis is really important for so many people with so many different conditions. But for me, I'm at a place now where when people ask me what my diagnosis is, or they say like, what exactly is your condition? I don't tell them, I don't disclose it. And a big regret for me with this film is that you can see the name of the condition, like in the Facebook group. I never actually intended that. I know it sounds really stupid, but I literally didn't notice until it was out in the world. And for me, that's not about not wanting to be not wanting to be defined by my diagnosis. It's quite a complex one. It's more about not wanting to be dehumanized. It's this morbid fascination from non-disabled people, like, oh, tell me all the details, like the medical details of your condition, because that's really what people are asking when they ask that. So yeah, for me, it was funny. It was obviously a very fundamental part of my journey. I wanted to find someone exactly like me, but like the conclusion I came to was that there was nobody exactly like me. And even when I met people who were very like me, still all it really made me feel was, oh my God, the disabled community is just so amazing in all our diversity. And I just want to get back to Naomi, who's disabled in a completely different way from me, but is like my true soul sister. We experience ableism in the same sort of way. So yeah, it was both important and now feels irrelevant to me.
Yeah, I kind of second that in the sense that it's like it's important and then it's not at all, right? So it's like, for example, you said earlier. You were talking about that you forgot, you immediately forgot something and you were like, because it's ADHD, And so that's a way that we understand, right? And so that you don't have to go home later and be like, oh my God, I sounded so stupid. I'm such a worthless person. I don't know why I did that. Everybody's thinking that I'm an idiot. And things like that, as little as they are, they spiral, and if you have some sort of label, it doesn't even need to be necessarily something that you're like, I am this and that's it. It just needs to be, for me at least, it was important to know so that I could go, oh, okay, now I can just move on and have a life as opposed to thinking you're terrible all the time, and there's no reason for it, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, so I love your question. I actually hopefully I have a good answer for it, but before I start on that, I know we've been saying this all evening, but like amazing films. I absolutely love the fact that you put them out there, because there's not many stories about, as you get older, about disability. There's so many stories around when you're a child, but not much about, okay, I'm gonna grow old and then what? And you're like freaked out, and like, the movie helped. So thank you, the movies helped. And back to your question about groups. Well, I've actually had this is a bit of a simplification, but I've actually had about 2 groups in my life, and one was actually centered around my diagnosis, and that was around my earlier life, where people who had the same diagnosis as me got together. And personally, I didn't quite like that group, simply because it was very medically centered, and it didn't see me as a person, as a young girl who had hobbies, who liked to dress pretty or something. It was just about, okay, this is your regimen, this is your medication, this is your treatment plan, and how are you going to fix that and go to school, and how is that schedule going to look like. It didn't quite see me as a person. It saw none of us kids as people with hobbies. And if we had hobbies, it was mostly used for like, oh my God, look at them, and like inspiration, and not so great. But notwithstanding the whole atmosphere of that group, the people in the group were awesome. I don't know what they're doing with their lives right now, but shout out to wherever they are. And the second group is actually something I got into very, very recently in my uni, that just me and a couple of friends, we got together and we put together this group. We call it the Disability Verse, where it's just all the students, hopefully some of the students in our uni who have disabilities, all kinds of disabilities. It's anyone who identifies as a person with a disability. We just get together and we just have events, we hang out, we just talk, ditch about things in our community. We went quite a lot and we yell at people that I will not name here because, well, I don't want to get into trouble. But now that group, it's made me feel more like a person. It's where we all talk about our hobbies and how our disabilities get in the way of doing our hobbies, and how we support each other, how that we talk about how there are hobbies that we can explore, that are accommodated, and then little events that we can go to, and how university is so exhausting sometimes, and like, no offense to all the instructors here, dear God, but it can get exhausting, and how that's a special kind of exhausting for us with our disability, and getting accommodations and still feeling like they don't see the amount of work that we put into to be in class that day. And just having a group of people where you say that and they're just nodding and be like, oh my God, yes, same, that makes a huge difference at the end of the day. So we don't do activism per se, like activism, political activism, but I like to think that we have each other's backs whenever our exhaustion and energy levels allow, and I think that's good enough for me, and I love that. And yeah, thank you for the question. That was a great question.
I don't even want to follow these answers, but I do want to play poker with you, Ella, because your face when you're talking to that doctor, like, yeah.
Told you I can't do public speaking. Oh, I see. Yes, let's play poker.
Your expression was
Poker
just,
face.
was showing everything you were feeling, and I'm thinking
Was it?
about Dr. Paley as he was describing it. So I wish I had a poster of that, honestly. And I could relate to that feeling in terms of. I've worked the majority of my life as a disability advocate, and so have you, Fioana, on the other end. You skipped the question. And a big part of how I spend my day is supporting people to have choice and control. So yes, I've done lots of different groups. Sometimes we do that on individual levels, and oftentimes we do that in groups where people are wanting to be placemakers and holders and taking choice and control over their own lives. And that's what I see my role do. is as the executive director of a disability rights organization. That's what we do all day long, every day. And I think the other thing that was making me reflect is when we were talking about the role of diagnosis as well as shame, because you brought that out a lot in your film, and a very powerful connection, and and I thought you covered that very well. And I think it was might have been your dad or your husband that was saying that that's the biggest barrier, right? Is that getting over that shame, and how freeing that is when you do get there and learn to love yourselves. But I wanted to talk about the bit of diagnosis because I was reflecting on the roles that we play as professionals in terms of supporting people. And one of the things I'm really proud of as I'm supporting and mentoring a team of young advocates that journey alongside people and their families is that really important thing. We don't ask what the diagnosis is ever as an organization. We ask what the barrier is that you're experiencing and what you want to achieve. The diagnosis sometimes wiggles its way in there in terms of what system we're working within. But I think the most important thing we can do in those spaces and those places that you brought up is meet people as people and connect and journey alongside and just see people for what they want, who they are and what they want to achieve. And not to necessarily, I know that sounds like I'm talking about erasing the disability, but that isn't what I mean by that at all. It's just honoring people and not letting a single piece of their identity define their entire existence, right? That people are full range of human perspectives and identities, and we honor them for that wholeness. And we're there as allies and friends to help society move along to the point where they're not experiencing the barriers that we don't experience day to day. I hope that made sense. I felt like I was a bit rambling there, but next question and I'll put down the mic.
Yes, in the back with I think are those hearts? Lovely.
Hi, as someone of the neurospicy who does film stuff, I really appreciate that you left the mess in the frame instead of, it's so easy to leave it out and like go for the respectability angle or like the positivity in, the toxic positivity, and I really appreciate, and then, yeah, it's really interesting the choices you made about what to leave in the frame.
Thank you. I think there was right at the end there on the side, yeah.
Thank you both again for your films. They were both very moving. I was holding back tears on both of them, and I related to a lot of different aspects of your experiences. And I was really intrigued as someone who loves film and writes a lot about film in the technical aspects of both and what you chose to do visually. And I guess my question would be for Afton with all the mixed media that you chose to incorporate. It was such as again, someone who with ADHD, is such a clever way to visualize that disorder and the things that go through your brain and the way that your brain is all over the place. And so I was curious as to what came first. Was it that you were deciding, okay, I'm going to tell this story, and it just came up that visual medium was with the mixed media and all the colors and the props and all that was the best way to tell it? Or did you want to do that first and the story sort of came along? Like, was that the mixed media aspect, has that always been a part of your filmmaking, or was it something that showed up when you decided to make a movie about your ADHD?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's see if I know the answer. Yeah. I really like that style of filmmaking in general. I think so. I was diagnosed, the pandemic happened, and I wanted to pitch a thesis film. And it all kind of happened at the same time. And I didn't want to work with actors. I wanted to do a documentary. So there were a lot of elements to where I went, oh, well, maybe I can film myself. Is that going to be not interesting? So there were a lot of fears in that way. But in pitching it, I had to write a treatment up. And so I, as messy as it may look in some ways, I really, really planned everything out in the treatment, and then everything changed. So it which was wonderful because I was working with a group of women who all of us were women and non-binary and people who were neurodiverse and a couple who were not, and all were kind of coming from a similar place, but yet with different skills. And so I think that's when we kind of decided to go, you know, our brains aren't like this clean, you know, we need to show what this actually feels like. And so the best way to do that, like you said, was this sort of collage-y, strange, bit shaky, editing, clippy thing, you know? So most of that was planned. Of course, in the process, things change, but you know, I think that's the best thing about filmmaking. I don't know if you feel that way too, but the best thing about filmmaking is that you're working with a group of people that hopefully you like, and then you have this idea, and then everyone else adds to that, and it sort of evolves into this really beautiful, different thing than you ever thought was even possible. So even though I had this idea that I was like collage and this and that, it was other people that, you know, really bring it together. So yeah, sort of planned, not at all.
Thank you, Afton. I believe I've been given the signal. Are we at? Do we have to wrap up the questions? Are we still have some time? Okay, I think we're okay. Yeah.
So first off, I just want to say how lovely both the films were, but my question's more geared towards Afton. I just recently got diagnosed with ADHD just a couple months ago.
Welcome.
Thank you. Makes a lot of sense. And I just had more questions. I related to the part about your parents, and just, it's going to be hard for me to say with my mom sitting next to me, but I'm working on talking about how I feel. So how did you get over the fact of forgiving your parents for not noticing right away?
Yeah. The best part about my parents, and hi, Mom, you're doing great. The best part about them is through any flaws, faults, anything that I disagree with them, any issues that we have, I am allowed to, and they are allowed to say anything to me with each other. The communication is completely open. So that doesn't mean that we are, you know, screaming at each other and disrespectful, but it does mean that I get to say, man, that really hurt me, that, you know, Mom, that you used to tell me that I was like my dad all the time, and that, oh, you're just like your father. And it was always a negative thing. By the way, my father got diagnosed with ADHD after I did, which, shocker. And so it's like, I think for us as a family, us talking about it, it actually made it better in a lot of ways, because it was like, you know, we didn't, I don't know how old you are. I'm sure you're younger than me, but
23.
Oh, what a lovely age. But
horrible age.
It gets better. Your 30s are really good, I feel like. You know, you'll love it. I feel like it's one of those things where if those communications are open, and if both people can work on taking accountability and saying, I'm so sorry that you felt like that and that I contributed to that. You know, that's really all it takes, is the two of you saying to each other, I'm like in a therapy session right now. I am not a doctor, do not listen to me, but this is how it was with my parents, is that I felt like I was allowed to say that I'm angry with them, or I'm allowed to say I'm angry that was the situation, and that no one saw it, and things could have been different, and I could have had a different life, and I could have whatever, coulda, woulda, shoulda, but ultimately it's going to be your struggle, because it doesn't, as much as you love her and as much as, sure, maybe you didn't feel like someone saw something, what I realized is it's more about me and the forward. So
Thank you. I also have one more thing to ask you. Just, I'm so new in my diagnosis. Do you have any advice or any pointers on like what you found was helpful to deal with it and become a little more functioning? I put in air quotations.
Yeah. Just keep a planner. No, I'm kidding. I would say be really kind to yourself and surround yourself with people that are going to be really kind to you. Not in like a toxic positivity way, because that is for sure a thing, but in the sense of like, you're doing great. You're alive. You're doing it. You woke up. That's so great. We're all alive. Like, we're all here. It's really cool. So yeah, be kind to yourself.
Thank you. I also love your sweater. Where did you get it?
I don't remember.
What a shame.
I bet it's anthropology because I go to all their sales. Yeah, no. Although I do cut out a lot of my tags because of sensory things.
Okay, it is.
What is it?
It says M-A-E-V-E. Maeve? M-A-V-E-E. M-A-E-V-E.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's an anthropology brand.
I'm just going to go and write it down quickly.
They have great 40% off sales. Get in on it.
Thank you, Afton.
Simon, can I just ask a
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that you've slinked away there, Ella, I have a question for you. Two questions, actually. The first one is, where do you live in England that has a palm tree?
M-A-E-V-E. Is it?
Maeve?
I actually think that's wrong, but anyway, I'll find it.
It's okay, we're going to find it.
I know, it's a good question.
I have a more substantial one after.
So I live in Brighton, which is South Coast. But yeah, I moved there like 6 years ago, and when I got there, I was like, what the hell? Why are there palm trees everywhere? I literally don't know. I guess it's because it's near the sea.
Okay, thank you. And because the other question a few minutes ago was about film technique, and I think one of the most powerful scenes in your film, Ella, was when you're leaving Paley? I want to say Payne for some reason. I think, but we'll call him Dr. Payne. When you're leaving that hospital and you're wheeling down the hall, and then there's all those giant portraits of the gods, and you say "Bye, gorgeous" to him. And it's such a powerful, again, that idea of reclaiming and returning the gaze, because, you did have a quick shot of Todd Browning's film Freaks, and Freak shows, of course, film has continued the tradition of the way that people with disabilities have been represented. How they were represented in freak shows. And one of the common tropes that they would do is, have someone that's tall standing beside someone that's a small statured, so that it would really accentuate, quote, their freakiness. So I found that scene so powerful, and I'd like to know what you were feeling when you were making that scene, when you saw it afterwards, and what made you say, "Goodbye, gorgeous"?
Thank you. I love that question. Yeah, I love that scene. I personally think it's the second best joke in the entire film. What made me say "bye bye gorgeous" was that, so I included it because, exactly as you said, I wanted a moment where I really kind of reclaim my power. And I chose not to kind of attack Dr. Paley. That was very much a conscious decision before I went in. I wanted to give him his say, and I wanted to represent him fairly in the edit. There was an earlier version where I guess I don't vilify him, but it's crueler to him. And it wasn't, I think I was very kind to him. I think I represented him more fairly than I could have done, basically. But yes, I wanted to remind everyone of the truth of the film and the truth of my message in a way that was not cruel but was clever. And I don't remember why I said "bye bye gorgeous," but genius move from me. Because I remember when I was watching back the rushes, I was like, that is so fucking funny. So yeah, thank you.
And with you not mentioning your diagnosis, I think it works because you don't say it. In the beginning, you just describe yourself, and then we see it on the Facebook thing, but I think it's an acronym, but then on the X-ray, and so it's medical. So and I think it worked having it in there.
Oh, thank you, thanks.
Lakita had a question in the back.
I want to congratulate everyone that's sitting in front of us today, because we worked so hard to bring that diversity and humanity into this room. That's a great feat, and for us to understand the way you've been bringing up yourself as a strong, I'm going to say pillar of the community, because you're holding up that corner post in that big, awesome building that is so strong. I want to also congratulate the people who took the time to come here today, because it's important that they truly understand what it is to hear the truth, and how you had to put up with it, and how you're going to put up with it until grandchildren are here, and you paved the pathway for them, and that's a long time coming, because as well as I do, a while back there was no pathway for the ones who were deemed not part of society, and where I grew up, there was a camp in our nation, and it was for children who were very crippled, and they were born with one leg or born with no arms, and they were sent to this camp because nobody wanted them, and they were looked after by a few people, and there was 28 of these children on our nation that, when we watched the moms and dads drop them off, they just pulled up in a car and let them out and drove away, never to come back and visit them again, because they were deemed different. So human has changed a lot in that time span I was so glad to see that, all the children in our nation used to sneak down there after school and go swim with them and play with them. And they were our true friends, and they would see us every day, and we taught them how to swim and how to play and how to be human. And my cousin Roderick, he was too. He was born with short legs, and that kid can outjump a 6'4" soccer player, and he was champion of all our teams in our nations. Whenever he played soccer, everybody went to watch him. All his life he did that, and everybody adored him. And yeah, he was born different, but he was not different. He was not different. And that was the beauty of recognizing humanity in its best place is in the heart of leadership. And lately I have seen leadership turn against young kids that they deemed they're not fit to live here. And that's 2024. It's not right. So I see what you're bringing on these journeys of solidarity is there's a lot of children out there in all different people's their bloodlines that are not being treated the same. And I see that in elementary schools and high schools. I hear it in universities. There's still lots of bullying going on for these youngsters, and what you're bringing is you put an armor plate on them, and you're going to help them achieve their dreams and their goals. And you see that one little boy there, he said he liked math. I like math. And I remember I spoke to one guy in this very room who loved math. He walked on the moon. That was his dream. And he walked on the moon. That was his dream. He was sitting right where you're sitting. So don't forget these young ones. When their brain starts working, It's not going to stop just because we say we don't want you to speak. Let them go. Let them go. Let them live. Let them love. And like I said before, when you train your mind to accept, just accept and love life no matter what. Love life. And we're all going to go up that mountain at the same time. We'll all get up there at the same time. And it's going to be a beautiful place for everyone. And I have seen it. And I was so glad one day when we walked up to that camp and nobody was in that camp. The government shut it down because of funding. That's all it took for someone to start caring, bring them to hospitals. Their funding was gone and they had to leave our nation. And so we don't know where they went. Nobody told us. But somebody was looking after them. So when I hear your stories, I want to scream out and I want to cry for them. Because humanity was bad. They were bad. And what you're doing, my lady friends, is you're changing the world in a good way. You're going to change the world in a better way. And we're going to live a better life knowing there's a lot of diversity in culture still coming towards us at every age. It doesn't stop at a certain age. So when you decide to put more on a film, just speak the truth and let that carry you. Don't use actors, just yourself. Speak the truth from your heart. You're the one. You're the one that's bringing it. And the people in here are ready. Bring it. Because people will get stronger. You have to make them stronger. And the only thing that's going to make them stronger, your voice and your heart. You've proven that to me today, and I so much love the way you all stick together and hold yourself high on that pedestal, and don't be afraid to pat yourself on the back once in a while, because you truly, truly deserve it, because you're the workers out there. You're the ones that are doing the work. We're not doing the work. You're the ones that are doing this work. And so sometimes there's no real way to say Haitsapka and thank you. There's no real words for it. Because there's no words in this language that is high enough to say Haitska Siam to you. Haitska Siam to you. And I hope my grandchildren meet your grandchildren one day and play together and grow together and look around in this room and say, my mom was here. My mom started this. My grandma said this. Or my grandfather said this. And they're going to live their own law of life. The laws of life have to change. And that's the only way we're going to succeed together as human. Law of life. All my relations, my dear.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, Elder Lakazen. I think we're gonna wrap on that, and I think it's a beautiful place to end on this idea of community and coming together. And thank you for that projection into the future. Thank you so much to our panelists. Again, Afton, Ella, Usha, Karla, and Fioana. We are so grateful for the time you've taken with us today. And on behalf of the KDocs, we have a small token of our affection and appreciation. Our panelists, our storytellers, big round of applause. Thank you.